Welcome to the brand new series on Pandas. In case you have not looked at NumPy, I highly recommend that you look at NumPy videos and then start with Pandas. Now, why Pandas? Because Pandas is actually the first library, the basic library that you will be working with whenever you are working with large number of data, a large amount of data. Pandas can handle large data very beautifully, and that's why we are going to start with the series. And by the way, this was a paid course earlier. Now this is completely free just for you. So let's get started. In the upcoming videos, we are going to have a look at data frames. But before we can understand data frames, it's very important to understand series. So we have data frames and we have series. So what are these two things? Data frame is very much like a table and series is like a column. In other words, think of series like one-dimensional array and data frame like a two-dimensional array. So how can we create a series? Very simple, we can create series from a list. We can create series from a NumPy array as well. So let's do this and see it in action. So I'm going to create one list. Let's call it a data height. So if I want to have a look at this, it simply contains 4, 5, 6 standard list. Now before I can create a series, I need to import pandas. So import pandas, and by convention it is imported as PD. So import pandas as PD. Now if we write PD and a dot and capital S, and if we press tab, we can see that we have a data type called series. Note that S is capital here. All we have to do is pass in this data height and we got ourselves a series. Now you can see that this looks a little bit different because there are two sets of numbers. So we have our data which is 4, 5 and 6, and we also have some numbers as 0, 1, 2. So these numbers 0, 1, 2, this is the index. Now the easiest way to understand data frame and series is to imagine one Excel sheet. So we have our data 4, 5, 6. This is in column A. And on the left hand side, we have the row numbers. So 0, 1 and 2. Now if you're wondering why it is 0, 1, 2, why it is not 1, 2, 3, which is what happens in Excel, because in Python, the indexes starts from 0. So if you look at 0, 1, 2 as the row numbers and 4, 5, 6 as the data, so this is exactly what we have here. 0, 1, 2 as the row numbers and 4, 5, 6 as the data. Now the beauty of series is that we can customize anything. So we can customize even the row numbers. So for example, look at this Excel sheet. It contains exactly the same data, but the row numbers are now Roman numerals. So can we do that for series? Yes, very easy. Let's see. So look at the parameters which are available. Press a Shift tab here. We can see that there is data, there is index, and there are few more things, but let's just focus on data and index. So the data is our data height. So this is the data. So let's try to pass on one index. So let's call this as index, and because this is an index for this height, let's call it height. Now these variable names are just to keep the things organized, and you will see that we can actually create numeric or string, any kind of indexes or labels. Okay, so simple list, and now what we can do is we can pass on this list to this function. So pd.series, and this time we are going to pass data as data heights and index as the index height. So these are the two variables that we declared, and now we can see that we have 1, 2, 3 as our index and 456 data. Note that the length of this index should be same as the length of data. So if I remove this and try to do it again, we will get a value error, and the value error will be that the length is 3 but the index are only 2. So this is something you need to keep in mind. The number of data and number of index, it should be the same. Similarly, if we want our indexes to contain, let's say A, B, C, we can do that. So instead of 1, 2, 3 in Roman, we can write A, B, and C. And we will have A, B, C as our index or roll numbers, however you want to call it. Now we created this series from a list, but we can also create this series using a NumPy array. So how do we do it? Very simple. Let's create one NumPy array. So let's import NumPy. In fact, just to keep things organized, let's move the cell on the top and import NumPy as NP right here. So execute it. Okay. Now let's use pd.series, and here in the data we are going to pass np.array. And how do we create this array? So we can use the same list and we have the same result. Now if it looks confusing, what we can do is let's create one separate variable and let's call it a data underscore np, and this time a data is going to be data np. Now by the way, if we press shift tab, we can see that data is the first argument. So if we are just passing one argument as data, so we don't have to name it. So we don't have to use a named parameter. Let me press shift tab again, and we can see that index is the second parameter. So if we are passing index, we can directly pass in index as an index height, and we have ABC 456, exactly the same result. It's also possible to create series from dictionaries. So let's create one dictionary and let's see how it can be done. So we'll use the same data. So let's create one dictionary. So let's call it a data dictionary, and this is height. So okay, let's call it DH. All right. And let's use 4 for A. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass this exactly as it is. So these will be my dictionary keys and these will be my values. B is going to be 5. C is going to be 6. Okay, so let's print it. And this is our dictionary. So again, let's pass this as it is, pd.series and data. And this creates a series and assigns labels as per the dictionary structure. But what if we provide another argument which contains labels? So let's provide index equal to index height. No problem, it works fine. But what if there is one more item in the dictionary? So let's call it a D and let's pass 7. Let's remove this C. Okay, now we have A, D and B in our data while the index contains A, B, C. Now this is a very important concept to understand. The series has been created based on index. So our index had A, B and C. So the series has A, B and C. So it looked for the values of A, B, C in the dictionary and C was not found. So it put NaN. And data had extra D, but it was not in the index. So it was totally ignored. So that's all we needed to learn about series for now. In the next videos, we are going to look at data frames. And the videos after that, we are going to dig deeper into data frames. So I'll see you in the next videos.